Hey everybody, this is Kubernetes SIG Architecture Production Readiness Sub-Project meeting for September 6th. Let me share the agenda. Okay. So release 129 is starting. So I think we should talk about that in a minute, but we can follow the agenda here. Wojtek, wanna jump in and go over the survey?
Yeah, sure. So I think there weren't that many surprising things, or like most of them were quite similar to, or most of the answers were quite similar to the previous years. So I think I noted down like couple things that were looked interesting to me. So the first one is that there were like, maybe not visibly, but still like what is that, like 20% ish, maybe like 15% less responses.
Yeah.
So that is a little bit unfortunate, but it's not that huge difference. What definitely changed is the many more responses, or visibly higher percentages for people that are running more clusters and more nodes. So this balance is, I'm not sure if it's like how representative is that like across the world, but for our
Right.
survey, like we are definitely moving towards like larger players, which may also be affecting other questions, but it's hard to like be sure here.
Yeah.
Um, the thing that is definitely important to notice is that we are slightly more lagging in terms of like both the oldest version and the newest version that like people are running. My guess, because we don't really know that, my guess is that it's primarily because of like deprecations that were happening. 122 was really hard in terms of like deprecations, and we see a lot of like 121 clusters, or significant percentage of 120, 121. 124 was also like problematic because of like Docker shim. So I think that might be the reason. That would be my explanation. That is definitely what we were seeing in GKE. That like
Okay.
going out of 120 now, 121 was problematic. So I guess it's explainable, but again, I'm not 100% sure. We don't have like confirmation if that's exactly the case, but that would be my estimate, my guess. The next thing is about rollbacks. I think what is a little bit worrying, although like it's um, um, still like in terms of like number of answers, it's really low. But like what is a little bit worrying, that like we have rollbacks because of cluster failure, like full cluster failure. We didn't have them last year.
Okay.
Um,
Do
um,
they say which version?
um, I can't remember which version that was.
Would you mind sharing this with me? I can't actually look at any of this.
So I just want to make sure if we share this can be shared, right? This is not the this doesn't have any PII, right? This one, the it's only underlying data that has the
Don't click to
Yes,
find out. This is
yeah.
It's just hard for me to see what you guys are talking about. The screen is a little
there's
tiny.
email addresses in the survey for follow up, and there was 1 year where John projected everyone's email address, and we had to edit it out.
I had to
Okay.
edit the
So,
video.
but if it doesn't include that, I see no reason to hide, I'd be happy to share with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can. I think that's only the underlying data. That was like the. I'm just going to share it with you for now, and we'll. I think we can share it um, with the whole community. But I want to just look
Yeah,
it
I
over.
think here there isn't any PII. I think it's only in the like spreadsheet and the answers that were used to generate those tables. But I don't think the report has any of that.
Yeah, that's my recollection as well.
Yeah, so that's actually a good question. I will try to find out which version that was. There was also like small success. Like I'm particularly happy because of that, because there weren't any rollbacks because of scalability. But
Right. That's good.
also
Yeah, that's good.
um um I just wrote it down because like it's
Wow,
I
so there was
I
like a
care about it.
minor version rollback, but not a patch version rollback. No patch
Yes,
version.
that was only about minor versions. The patch versions is actually there weren't any. There isn't anyone who did a who rollbacked patch version in production. There were rollbacks in
In dev.
staging and test, but there weren't any in prod, which is
Okay.
pretty good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for beta features, I think yeah, there's slightly lower percentage of people allowing for beta, but I guess it might be noise. Like the difference were pretty low.
Do you have the data for which versions were minor version rolled back?
We have that. I think it's
not in the report. I think it's in the underlying.
it's not in the report. Like
Okay.
I need to dig it from the
raw data. Yeah.
from the actual spreadsheet and the results. But I think it's I will try to find it out after the.
I'm curious if it's like mostly like 121 or something like that, you know?
Maybe I don't know. I should have checked that, but yeah, going back, I think that one thing that I'm happy about, like about beta features, is that like all the disablements were because beta features didn't work. I mean, this particular feature didn't work, not because or the
Most of them, yeah, which is that's like what we're trying to do is prevent people. Well, we would hope that we don't break clusters with beta features. But,
yeah.
Yeah.
What was worrying to me was like alpha features, because the enablement for alpha features actually increased significantly, and that definitely doesn't look like noise. So I guess this is one of the things that we and I'm not sure how, but like we should think how to follow up on that and what that really means.
Does this mean people are just enabling alpha features? Is that what it means?
In production.
They are enabling alpha features, in particular in prod, like.
Yeah.
So this is what we saw the first couple of surveys as well. And last year we saw a dip. So maybe that was a fluke last year. This was about a third of people have enabled alpha features, not all out, but like at least one alpha feature in production.
We should be stricter about alpha features then, right?
I mean, stricter in what sense? This actually means our alpha features are amazing.
Yes.
I mean,
or people are
does it?
very risk tolerant, right?
Does it mean they're amazing, or does it just mean that people like the features that are coming out in alpha a lot? It doesn't necessarily mean it's not causing cluster instability.
Do we have information whether they enabled and disabled that immediately?
Exactly.
What is the rate of disablements once you enable a feature? is it similar to the beta that only they disabled when it failed? And what would be the rate of, oh, we enabled this many, but we disabled this many?
I don't think we ask about disabling of alpha features, because the reason disablement of beta features was in there is because originally, well, features I think are still locked by default. It's just APIs that we turned off, right? So,
I mean, I'm trying to figure out, because Wojciech mentioned that he wanted to follow up on the alpha enablements, what we
right.
want to do with that. It would be good to know a little bit more details with regards to the alpha features, because it
And
could
if
be
it's
either,
specific
it could
features,
be,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
maybe there's just one that's so hotly in demand that everybody just enabled that,
Yep.
you know. Um, but
exactly. Maybe
we don't have that level of detail. It's hard enough to get people to answer anything. So, but we can follow up if we think it's critical. And I love a volunteer to follow up. We have at least we request people's emails if they're open to being followed up with. So, you can look and see who's enabled alpha, and if we have emails for them, we can follow up with them. That's something that would be great. It would be good to understand the details. But this is a very general sense we get from this survey, right? Like this is people sitting down and thinking back, did I do that? Yeah, I remember doing that. Like it's not highly scientific.
It's actually worth remembering why we started the survey. Is the agenda item, are we going to do it again, already on there?
It is.
Because
It should have been.
if not, well, we should talk about that after. But yeah, it gets into the why we did the survey to begin with.
Right. Well, let's let Wojciech finish, then we'll get into that. Is there anything?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the last thing is about troubleshooting, which is slightly worrying, is that like people seem to be using metrics less.
Less than they used to.
But it's like the similar trend seemed to be the case for I that was like from comparing with the previous year, like 2022.
Okay.
But it
I am
seems that
somewhat
this
shocked. Yeah.
it seems that the similar thing was actually for like both logs and events. So I'm not sure if we shouldn't interpret it in a way that people are just debugging or looking into their clusters less, which would be strange too, but that's possible. Like if
Because
everything would work
there's
perfectly,
fewer
then maybe that's
problems.
the thing.
Right? There's fewer Kubernetes problems. Maybe there are problems with their workloads, but there are fewer, like things
Yes,
are just working better. So they don't
and
have to.
maybe that's the case. Yes.
Optimist.
Yeah, optimism.
But
We can always interpret it to be um,
but also
okay.
the differences aren't that huge. So it like statistics doesn't work that well and that like small scale. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure if we should be worried about that. I mean, like from my perspective, um, the really big thing were alpha enablement, which like increased by 2x comparing to the previous year.
Yeah.
And the changes in like why people are rolling back stuff, but those were kind of positive.
I wonder if it's specific features that people are enabling, like because I think since the last time we did the survey, there have been a bunch of cell stuff that was in alpha, and we had been talking about it a lot at KubeCon and whatever, and maybe people had gotten their foot
I don't think
shot
there's
enough
any.
with the webhooks.
Without additional research, it's really hard to know. There's dozens of features and
That's also true.
yeah.
Yeah, there can be things on like on the node itself because they need this particular
Thing, yeah.
tuning or node or whatever. So I think the only way to learn a little bit more about it would be what John already suggested, which is correlate the answers or look back into the actual spreadsheet and see who if we have any emails to people who actually enabled those alpha and try to reach out to them.
So do we have anybody who wants to do that, who's curious enough? And I honestly don't know that it's super important to answer, like, and this maybe rolls into that next topic that David brought up. Like, this survey was originally, we did it because we wanted to make sure we weren't wasting our time and the community's time with production readiness reviews. And I think we've concluded, and even with the survey, it's a little hard to know, but from the question we added a year or two ago, is it more stable than it was before? And we get yes for the vast majority of people. And even if you actually dig in, some of these no's, like at least one of these no's is, well, it was already really, really stable. So no, it's not any more stable. It's just as stable. It's like, that's
Yep.
kind of, we didn't word the question that well because we got those kind of responses. We probably should be saying, is it at least as stable? But in any case,
can we ask additional questions in the future? Like, I would love to know if people run into issues with upgrades, for instance. Like, how many issues have you run into upgrades in the last year? Would be a great question, right? Because like, steady state Kubernetes is one thing, day 2 operations is another, right?
I think that's a great point. So, but to be clear, it is a fair bit of work, as Wojciech now knows, to put together, to administer, and then to even more so, the biggest part is the analysis. So I'm open to that. We may be better off if we're interested in certain questions, partnering with the CNCF to get a broader audience. Like, this is really was targeted at answering the specific question for this project. I'm leaning towards, and I think David is too, which is why he's raised it multiple times, towards like, we wrap this up and we don't do this same survey next year. Or if we're going to do it, I think we partner with the CNCF team, who maybe they do a survey much broader, and maybe we can revisit an analysis like you're talking about, like, what are the things we want to know to inform not so much this process, but new efforts within the community that are outside. Like, I don't know. What do you think of that?
Yeah, but I think those are two different things. I think that the primary reason that we were running this survey was to ensure that we are not wasting our time, to ensure that the additional cost that like every CAP author is paying is actually worth it.
Right.
And that the time we are spending is not a waste of time. I think like the surveys are pretty clearly showing that like the answer is yes, it's worth it. I'm also hearing it from many different folks across the community that like, yes, it's additional cost, but it actually makes sense.
It makes things better.
It makes things better, yes. So from my perspective, I don't think repeating this survey will actually bring us any data. So I'm not opposed to running like other surveys, but as you said, John, I think those will be serving other goals, like where we should invest more or something. But for me, it's like running this particular kind of survey again. I don't think it will bring any real additional value.
David?
Okay. I'm glad to hear that we're on the same page there. I'm also open to figuring out what that new information we want is. So I don't know if that's what Han has his hand raised to talk about, but if we do administer a survey again, knowing what we would do with the information we collect really helped us figure out what questions we wanted to ask, and made our first survey pretty close to what our second survey was, and then I don't think we changed after that. So just something to keep in mind as we consider it.
Huh?
Yeah, so I mean, I personally really like the survey, right? Like, though, okay, so for me, there's not a lot of information except in a few questions, right? Like, it's interesting to know like clusters under management, nodes under management, right? Because it just gives you um, like which sample is actually answering the questions for this survey, and it gives you an idea on like who the audience is, right? But that doesn't actually give you the questions that are really relevant to PRR specifically,
Yeah,
right?
that's
And so like that's why I'm like asking about like upgrade related questions, because like that's the thing that we're drilling down in our PRR reviews, right? Like upgrade, downgrade, like right? Like
we do. That is one of the trickier areas that we end up with people on a lot is the upgrade downgrade. That's we're trying to capture that in the rollback questions, right? Like they had to roll back because the upgrade was bad, basically, right? That would be um, now maybe your argument is we're not successfully capturing that, and that may be. Um,
I mean, was the rollback successful? That's what I want to know. Like we don't have that bit,
uh, yeah,
right? And
that's
why
true.
did you roll back? Like
Why did you roll back is here.
okay,
The reasons we have are it was a test, which hopefully they're not doing in production. There was a scalability failure. The whole cluster just like imploded. Specific components started failing, or in the case of like it could be that there was a feature, some specific feature they wanted out of the new version that just was broken, it didn't work for them or whatever. So we do have that, and the vast majority of the reason was that some specific components failed, and that's why they rolled back the minor version. And then there's a little bit of uh, yeah of complete cluster death, which is bad. This was the one Wojciech was saying last year we had none on the cluster failure. Um, but what does that mean? Like people may not differentiate all that much between these two things either, right? If the component failing is kubelet or something, like it's basically a dead cluster, right?
or API server crash looping or something. I mean, but like component failures and yeah, component failures just smells a lot like 1-to-1 type compatibility issue type deals, right? Like, and that's why I was kind of wondering what the versions were.
Yeah, and you'd have to drill in deeper. We don't
Yeah.
have it in the summary here, but it is in and we can get you access to that data. Um, the the yeah. Um, so I think the question at hand was though. I mean, I think that one is probably Wojciech. Would you want to give a brief summary of this tomorrow in SIG architecture? Are you going to be there?
Yeah, I'm happy to do a quick overview. I should be there, yes, tomorrow.
Okay, I'll make sure. Usually we haven't had much on the agenda lately, so I imagine there will be space on it, but I'll have to. Um,
The kubelet API is coming up tomorrow, so I would actually bet we will have some noteworthy comments.
okay, so we can defer it. There's no urgency on it, so um, we can do it if there's time. Okay.
Yeah, feel like John, if you have it open, like you can add me, and if we won't get to it,
Yeah.
we can move to like next meeting in 2 weeks.
Okay. What is that?
You're adding that to the.
I think you are adding it for the previous one,
Yeah.
not for the
Yeah.
one tomorrow.
I think there's like upcoming section or something like that tomorrow.
Oh, you're right. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I missed the last one, so I know that's too much familiar. Okay. All right. So Han, it sounds like you may want to do it. The rest of us are not so keen on it.
To do
We've
what?
been doing it second quarter or first or second quarter, so you have a few months to decide.
Okay.
But the other option is, like I said, if there's maybe think about what I would ask you to do is think about what are the questions you're interested in answering, and if they're beyond the scope of what the intent of this was, it might be a different survey. But if you really just want to say, are we successful in our upgrade pieces, or exactly what are you trying to answer that A, the current survey doesn't answer, and B, or does or doesn't answer, I guess, but B, like, is this the right venue to do it? Because we honestly, we get such a low, my biggest concern about it since day one has been the sampling bias, right? Like, what is this sample of people we get? I send this out to, we try to send it out. I asked Contribex to send it out to like Kubernetes, on the user discussions. And so it should go out to a broad audience, but you only get 70 responses. Like, I advertise it at KubeCon if I'm there. Like, I try to make it people do it, but like realistically 70 or even 100 we got last time. It's that's why we have those demographics there. We're trying to get an idea of like who are the people answering this, because we want to know we're getting,
Do
you know,
you have a list of the current questions? Because I would just fork that and then add my
yeah,
own.
yeah, yeah. We have a whole form, Google form that I
Can you
can
send it
clone.
to me? Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. Okay. So anything else on this before we move on? Is Mo here?
A quick question. Have we previously reached out to CNCF to have a broader reach of the
No.
Yeah,
survey?
that would be great. I mean, I would like to compile the list of questions and then give it to the CNCF because I feel like
Yeah.
they're very good at driving these sorts of things.
Exactly. That's what
Yeah.
I'm thinking too. Like,
Yeah.
if we had the reach of that team, like they do a whole cloud native survey with,
Exactly.
more executive level people, but they'll have the reach probably to get to people we haven't really been very successful in getting to just from the Kubernetes project.
Like, I'm curious, like, what frequency do people upgrade their Kubernetes clusters? Like, do they do it every patch version? Do they only wait for minor versions? Like, how many upgrades do they do a year? How many do they do a month? Like, do upgrades go smoothly? Is it one shot, or do they have to debug stuff in the middle? Like, how many of those debugging sessions do you have? Right? Like that kind of granularity would be just phenomenal, right? Because like that's the crux of PRR, right? Is we want it to be one shot, one and done, right? Like, and
Yeah.
if that's not happening, then basically there must be gaps in the stuff that we're asking.
That's no,
I
that's
think we need to be careful here because like the more questions we ask, the less answers we will get, basically.
That is true.
We need to find a balance here.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm definitely
So
not
let's,
against trying that.
yeah, no, but I think let's start. You can start with what we've got, dupe it, run through it, clear out stuff you don't think is relevant, add in stuff you think. Then we can meet, discuss it, and we can pull in folks from the CNCF, and they may have people who have run a lot of different surveys and can, help us. And we have some folks here at Google who could probably from OSPO who would be willing to help. Like Sophia is really, she's like professional person, research person, right? She could go through and probably tell us, you're going to turn off too many people with this question. So like we can evolve something, and let's just make sure that one, we know what we're going to do with the information, and two, like, well, I guess maybe that's the starting point. Like, if we think, oh, this will tell us where to invest, which is something Wojciech said earlier, we need to know who we're going to have to convince to invest there, right? So I think it's a good thing to do. Let's just set our expectations appropriately. So, but Han, why don't you and we can chat afterward on that.
Sure.
Okay, so it's definitely time to sign up for PRR Shadows. I think, we have like 21 days, I think, until freeze. So we're actually getting pretty close. I mean, we're always close, I guess. As soon as we start getting things to review, we're close, right? So I haven't looked at the board or set up a board or anything yet. Has anybody else? Okay, so we need to maybe sync up with the release team, take a look at the board, make sure that we had from last time. Okay, so let's change this and we'll say everybody's unconfirmed now, well, except for the people here, right? So you're confirmed, Han, you're gonna do it?
Yeah. This time, yeah. Sorry about last time. I just got super slammed at the last minute. It was
I
terrible
understand.
timing. Yeah.
All right, well, what we should, I'll just put, rather than me just trying to edit this now, I'll put a thing out on Slack, asking, I don't think Tim's gonna do it this year, or this time.
I'm not sure if Joe is going to either.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard from any, well, and I don't think, so I haven't heard from any of these folks really. But anybody who's here who wants to put themselves in confirmed, please go ahead. I'm gonna say Aaron's a no. I don't know what he's doing now, but he's.
I suspect Andrew will do it, but since he's been pretty consistent about it, I suspect,
Okay.
but I don't know. Yeah.
Our conversion rate, just pointing out, like our conversion rate of shadow to approver is maybe
It's 0 right now, David.
it is. I will admit that I had hoped that creating I need to go back and refresh that PR, but I had hoped that creating the approval list would help us get there. Can you think of anything we could do? Like, do we know if it's a lack of opportunity? Do we know if it's a lack of interest? Do we know if it's a lack of time?
It's a lot of work.
It is.
It's a lot of work. And I am a masochist.
Yeah, but it's like if you put it together, do you actually have enough to make a prover and you just don't want to? I hadn't had the will to look because I was worried that was the answer I was going to get. Like,
I haven't had the will to look.
Okay.
It's just a lot of work to do all. Even I've looked at the bar, and it's a lot of work to meet the bar, right? And just even without meeting the bar and not even thinking about the bar and just shadowing PRRs, just a ton of work. You're looking at like 20 caps or something. It's like my eyes are bleeding by the end of cap freeze. Like your guys too. I'm sure. I mean, like
Yeah.
preaching to the choir, but
That's fine. Maybe John, after the next time, it will have been a full year, and if our conversion rate is still 0, perhaps we need to assess our approach.
Yeah. Okay.
That seems probably reasonable. Yeah.
I mean, it's true, except that if you look at what is the success rate of getting org members to reviewers to approvers, like
I'm not,
it's all hard, right?
I know the people on this list, right? Like I know the people on this list are
they're
pretty
all
good. They've been working here for a long time. Yeah. Anyway, just something.
And I mean, we have to ask, like, okay, so if we
this is harder than getting approvers. This is harder than getting approvers for sure.
Like, then that means that you and me and Wojciech, we're gonna sit and we're gonna not have enough time to do as thorough of a review anyway. So maybe having more approvers, even if they're not, they'll get better at it over time. Like
I'm not there yet. I'm not mentally there.
okay,
The getting me to a point of like, well, having trouble getting this bar. Can I get this lower one? That's really hard to convince me of, but it is something that like I want to.
what's the ultimate effect, right?
Yeah.
Like
So
last
anyway,
time, I did a lot of reviews, and I've done them now for several years, so I can do them pretty fast, and I know what I'm looking for. But I am sure that if I had fewer caps to review, I would spend a little more time with each one. Every year, every cycle, there are ones I'm like, okay, this is a really complicated cap, and I would love to spend an hour commenting on the design, but I'm going to just ignore it all, only look for the parts that specifically affect PRR because I only have 15, 20 minutes to do it, right? Like, I know I do that, right? Maybe I shouldn't, but I run out of time. And so, like, in that sense, which it might be fine because other people are looking at the design, but I don't know. It's a little bit, we have to look at the overall effect of the bar, not just the one by one approvals. You know what I mean?
I mean, I will be honest with you, I don't even have that much of a strong desire to actually become a PR reviewer because you guys have so much work each cycle. And right now for me, it's voluntary, which is great. But then once I become a reviewer, then the slice of the pie is just so big that it's a little bit overwhelming, especially when you have a lot, like everything happens at Cap Freeze, right? Everything happens. And so it's just like, I mean, I was hoping that there would be more shadows so that everyone could get promoted to approvers at the same time. Then this slice of the pie that you have at the end of a release
That's
cycle
funny.
is
Yeah,
manageable. But
yeah.
if it's just one more person for you guys, it's just like this is just like I just don't really want it, you know. Like it seems like a bad deal, you know. Like
It's a dubious honor.
yeah,
Yeah,
right. Like
had if you, on the other hand, if you look at it from a different angle, um, if each and every single one of the shadows will be thinking through the lenses of this is overwhelming because you're looking at at all of the PRR reviews, rather than, oh, if there's one another PRR reviewer, and actually whatever the total number divided by slightly increasing number actually results in less PRs to be reviewed by a single member of the PRR team. So
Yeah, I mean, another, like, just to throw an idea out there, and then we can wait, David, if you want to wait, but like, if we double or triple the size of the PRR team, but we have everybody do, let's say we triple the size of the PRR team, but we have everybody do review, um, everyone get two reviewers instead of one. Maybe the quality doesn't go down because two different people see different things. But you know, the volume per person goes down because we tripled it and doubled the amount of reviews. So we get 2/3 the volume per person. So those are some ideas we might throw out. It's like you're saying, changing our approach a little bit.
well, have you guys considered like reaching out to other SIGs? Because the reason why I'm doing this is because SIG Instrumentation had a PRR reviewer, right? Elena Hashman. And it was very convenient to have an in-SIG PRR reviewer. And that's why I'm here, right? And like, if other SIGs followed this approach, right? Like, it would actually kind of grease the wheel.
It does, but well, two things. One, I would want, I don't want PRR to be a per sig thing because a lot of the effort, a lot of the idea is to see the things that aren't in your sig,
No,
right?
no, for sure.
Right, how did you break node when you changed this API machinery thing, right? Whatever it is. So, but we do hope that and I think we've seen this. I think the quality of the responses has gone up over the last couple of years, and I think that's due to the SIG leads and the SIG reviewers already knowing how to answer these things right and being able to help the people writing the caps. So I think we get that that reduces our load, but it doesn't. It's not quite what you're saying.
I mean, like, one of the things we're trying to do in instrumentation is also just embed an instrumentation person in other larger SIGs. That way, SIGs get direction on observability stuff. Like they have an embedded person basically. So I kind of like this approach, right? Like not just like horizontal yet vertical, right? like like uh, and I think PRR it could work similarly.
Okay, so let's we have one more item on the agenda. Let's go through with it since we only have 3 weeks now before our freeze. Let's just go through with it as we have been. I'll reach out and get to all the people who've previously shadowed, see who I can get confirmed, and then in the next week or so, we should hopefully be seeing enough caps coming in, and the board should be up and running. We should start doing assignments. And then after 129, we can have a discussion of whether we think people are ready to graduate or whether we need to shift the approach, like David was saying. And that's a good, I mean, trying to encourage reaching out to SIGs and trying to encourage them to pick one or two people to be kind of knowledgeable about this is definitely one approach.
Okay.
Oh, did they change it? I thought I saw the email go out. They said it was the 29th or something. Oh, enhancements freeze. Yes, we have a soft freeze before that, but you're right. We don't have to review them before the soft freeze. They have to get them done before the soft freeze. So yes, okay, we have 4 weeks. That's a little better. Sorry, Dave, were you saying something?
Oh, just saying that it sounded fun, and yeah.
Okay.
I've never gotten the board ready, so if you get the board ready, then I'll look.
There's almost nothing to do to get. It's just like I just go through and make sure the shadows are the right people listed there.
Cool.
Yeah. The release team basically gets the board ready. Like we don't usually have to do anything. We just have to validate it. Okay. Last item then. Wojciech, native metrics versus cube state metrics.
Yeah, so I think we already chatted about that some time ago, but I actually was trying to find it out and I didn't find it. And I don't remember like what we concluded on. Like basically the question is like there are some kind of some features. I think that the recent example that I had is that
if you want counts for
capital.
resources, yeah, if you want counts of resources or something, you're gonna have to use KSM, yeah.
Yeah. So and the question is like basically, are we okay with metrics that are only cube state metrics, or we require the native metrics? And my approach, maybe just to quickly say, like for those simple cases, I generally okay with like cube state metrics. That the less trivial the feature is, the more inclined I'm to require like the native Kubernetes metrics. But like it's a little bit hand wavy where the bar is, and I guess it might.
No, that sounds like completely reasonable to me. Like completely, like if it's really complicated feature, then yes, like
Yeah,
you
the
want
question is
native
like where
instrumentation.
like how do you define complicated? And like I guess the bar is a little bit in a different way, in a different place for each of us. So and I would ideally like to be consistent. It's probably like impossible to achieve it, but I guess the first question is like whether allowing cube state metrics for those simplest things is something that
I guess the question is, like, so there's two answers. There's two things we're trying to get people to answer with metrics at a minimum, right? One is the feature in use and is it operating properly, right? Like ideally, right, you'd be able to get more information than that, like why is it failing or what's wrong with it or whether its performance is good.
Sure, yeah.
Like
I'm,
minimal.
yeah, I guess I'm talking about like there are every single release there are some features like let me set this field in status to show that something, and there's like nothing like there's no additional like really execution based on that field. It's like more for reporting purposes, and for those things I don't think like requiring like native metrics actually, like I would say it's like an overkill than
Right.
than a use for anyone. So the question is, are we okay with that, and like how far from that we are still okay with
Yeah.
cube state metrics?
Well, even the line between native metrics and cube state metrics can sometimes be blurry because we do sometimes have some overlap between the two, right? Like Clayton introduced a bunch of metrics into the scheduler, which kind of replaced some of the metrics that people were otherwise getting from KSM. So it's not even that clear cut when you're comparing the two, right? Like it's actually blurry all over the place.
So maybe then it's just we need people to be able to get the information, and it's not as important whether it comes which it comes from.
It is kind of important, right? Because it's a third party thing. It might not be on your cluster, and so that is a really big downside to saying, hey, you can just check KSM, but it's like, what if you don't have it on your cluster? You always have native metrics, so you will always be able to tell. However, you're saying this you're flying blind unless you have this third party resource. It's a different thing, right?
I mean, yes. So answering the question of like, so there's different, I guess this comes down to a little bit like what you were saying. There's different kinds of features. Like there's some features that like, so as an administrator, I want to know, are my users using this feature? An easy way to check that is to see resource counts. And so like, if we don't raise, we don't have that kind of metric in an API server. So KSM is the only way to get that, right?
I mean, our best proxy is API server storage objects, but yeah, I mean, we yeah.
What did you say?
The best proxy that we have is API server storage objects, which gives you group version resource, I think.
Okay.
Counts for group version resource, yeah.
I mean, that's not that bad for seeing if certain things are in use. If they're
exactly, yeah.
I mean, yeah.
KSM is richer though. I mean, because you can get like arbitrary paths, right, to like status and specs, so you can see, oh, is this like pod stuck in this particular state?
Right. I see. So you could simulate a lot of things that would otherwise be done in native. I see where the issue is. Yeah.
I mean, KSM itself has, to me, reliability issues, which is why I don't like using KSM as like like KSM kind of like has memory issues, right? Like it's kind of known for it, and its sharding mechanism is garbage, and so I really don't like people saying, oh, well, just use KSM. It's like, now you have two problems, like, I mean.
Yeah.
A shift would be pretty significant.
What did you say, David? I didn't.
I said I think a shift there would be pretty significant.
To forcing native metrics for everything you're saying?
Yeah. Now, some of that is just perhaps a lack of familiarity with how we can actually achieve some of the same things. I'm not prepared to say that we couldn't, but I don't know how to do it. I guess I would say if we were going to switch and say that cube state metrics was no longer viable, I would first want to see SIG instrumentation work out how we would have created cube state metrics without it, right? How we would have done all the cube state metrics work inside native metrics. Because we're saying like, no, the only viable path is one where it's native. That seems to be the question we would have to answer.
One of the problems I have with cube state metrics, I actually don't think that's an easy question to answer, because cube state metrics does so goddamn much, and that's actually one of the problems. And so you just end up dragging in the world. I mean, like, it's even doing CRD metrics now, and that is like, I kind of asked them to partition out the CRD stuff into like a separate binary so that we could have like a CRD state metrics or something, like, just because like it's a completely different code path and the things that they're doing, they might as well just write another binary instead of bundling it all into KSM.
I think it has to get back to what are the things we're asking people to have metrics for. And the thing that at a minimum from a kind of like, can we answer these questions that are in our questionnaire? Is the feature being used? Is it working properly? Obviously, we'd like to go a step further, but I think certainly steps further can be cube state metrics. But those are the sort of minimum bar we've been setting. I occasionally, I haven't maybe been that strict on some of the is it in use things. I try to push people towards a metric there, but there are things where, it's not easy to do. But I don't know. I don't see. I mean, I think this is one of these judgment calls. I'm not sure how to make it better, more definitive than. You raised this, Wojciech, like you were saying, you think the bar is different for each of us. Like, do you have any? Maybe we need to look at some concrete examples, and then that will help
No,
us.
I don't have any data, and maybe it's actually not different. I was just like it's just everyone is like thinking differently. So I guess the bar might be in different places for each of us, but
it might be interesting to go
until we have really real data or someone complaining, then maybe it's not worth.
It may be a useful exercise to go through all the caps and look at the answers to these questions and see if they look like we've been holding a consistent bar around the answers to these questions, or whether we've been wobbly here, and then discuss what we think an appropriate bar is. Han, would you be interested in doing that, since you are our SIG instrumentation?
You know what would be helpful is anytime you have a enhancement where people are suggesting to use KSM metrics, yeah, just tag me. I would just love to see all of them, like, so I can at least just think about them, right? Because like, I'm sure that there are ways we could not use KSM, and if you guys were just to tag me, I will look at it and I'll think about it.
Okay. Are you interested in doing the retrospective analysis of our answers to metrics questions in the PRR?
Sure.
Okay, that should be fairly easy. I mean, it'll take a little time, but since all the caps are out there, and you can just find the answers to those questions and see if there's a consistent bar, and we can go back and backtrack which one of us is bad afterward, or whatever.
Which one of us is the easy parent?
Exactly. Don't tell anybody though, because then then you'll end up with all of the whoever that is will end up with all the PR.
I actually feel like a lot of like you guys sometimes just ping me anyway on the metrics related questions, so it kind of happens organically today a little bit.
Yeah.
So I mean it's fine. But I would specifically the cube KSM ones. I would be very interested in seeing what reasons what people are choosing KSM metrics. If it does make sense, like sometimes it can make sense. Other times probably it doesn't, right? Like
Okay, well, we're pretty much out of time. So then I think that as far as I see the action items there, I've got one to go through and ping the different shadows and see who's gonna step up and validate that those people are on the board and that the sync up and make sure the board's all set up as we need it. And then once that's done, we'll start looking at the actual, KEPs that have opted in and start doling things out. I think that what we did last cycle, which is the shadows do the first review, was helpful. I found that helpful anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
For me as well.
Okay. All right, then anything else before we wrap it up? Okay, thanks everyone. Have a great couple of weeks.
Thanks. Bye.